People who work in livestock markets have the responsibility to handle sheep carefully and properly. They must remember the public is out there watching. You need to be thinking about what you're doing. What would it look like if it was posted online? It's everybody's responsibility to handle animals with good animal welfare because it's the right thing to do.
As Dr. Grandin indicated, reducing stress to improve productivity and good husbandry are some of the key reasons producers should concentrate on the animal handling and management of sheep. In addition, pride and profit are also reasons sheep producers are concerned with improving the responsible care and management of their sheep. Good husbandry and proper handling and management result in comfortable, content, and productive sheep. Stress on both the shepherd and the sheep are reduced. A basic principle is calm animals are easier to handle than frightened, agitated animals. It takes 20 to 30 minutes for agitated animals to calm back down. Experienced producers soon recognize that well-designed working facilities reduce the work and physical exertion required to provide the necessary care for sheep, reduce injuries, and create a higher quality meat product. Management jobs, such as healthcare, are scheduled and performed in a more timely and routine manner when proper working facilities are available. Management jobs are often avoided or ignored due to the lack of good facilities. Carrying out the various management jobs is possible in a more humane manner with less risk of injury to the sheep and the shepherd. When adequate facilities are available, it's easier to complete routine work with less stress on the sheep and handler. With skilled, quiet handling, there is a much lower instance of injuries and bruising, as well as stress, which means a higher meat and pelt quality is maintained. Therefore, lower carcass condemnation rates, higher carcass values, and higher consumer satisfaction with the products is achieved. Finally, well-maintained sheep means that wool is maintained in a cleaner, more valuable condition. Let's take a few minutes and review some of the biological or instinctive behaviors that are important to remember when handling sheep in any environment. Each of these items is important because the primary objective of proper sheep handling and well-designed facilities is to increase the productivity and profit from the sheep operation while meeting an ethical and moral obligation to ensure good animal welfare and care and production.
Sheep have wide-angle vision. They're a prey species animal, and their vision's designed so that when they're grazing, they can look all the way around for predators. They have wide-angle vision, unless they've got very long wool around the eyes, and they call that wool blind. Then the sheep is not going to have wide-angle vision. But if they're shorn, they can see all around. Where predator, on the other hand, has the eyes in the front of the head, eyes closer in the front of the head, so they can judge depth and go out and get their prey.
The reason sheep have a wide-angle vision is so they can easily scan their surroundings while they are grazing to see possible dangers. If handlers stay within the visual field, the sheep will move forward or at an angle. Wool-blind sheep or sheep with long wool around the eyes will have reduced wide-angle vision. Crowd gates close behind the sheep, as well as the sides of the barriers leading to the gate, should be solid, whereas gates in the direction sheep are moving should allow the sheep to see where they are moving.
The flight zone of an animal is kind of their personal space. If you have an animal that's been out on the plains, been out on pasture, very extensive, they'll have a huge flight zone. You just get, 50, 100 feet from them, they'll run away. Then you can have a completely tame 4-H lamb that you can stroke and pet and lead around. It has no flight zone at all. That one you need to lead with the feed bucket or with the lead sheep, or just lead with a halter. But most sheep, they're in the feed yard or they're out on a ranch, they're going to have some flight zone. And there's different factors that affect the size of the flight zone. And they are genetics. The genetically flightier animals will have a bigger flight zone. They are the amount of contact with people and the quality of that contact.
All sheep, regardless of breed, maintain a zone of comfort or security. If a handler enters the flight zone, the sheep will generally move away. This is the flight response. The size of the flight zone varies greatly between animals. Sheep that have been raised in a barn in close contact with people will have a smaller flight zone than range sheep, which seldom see people. The size of the enclosure in which the sheep are penned also affects flight zone size. Sheep confined in a narrow alley will have a smaller flight zone than sheep confined in a larger area. When sheep are handled in a confined area, pileups can occur if a handler enters the flight zone too deeply or tries to rush the sheep. Sheep will follow in an orderly manner if the leaders are moving. Being bitten by dogs is very stressful. Dogs should not be used in small pens. Dogs are recommended in open areas, in large pens, and in wide alleys where there is enough room for the sheep to move away. The use of solid sides in chutes and pens also will prevent sheep from seeing people. Solid sides should be used to encourage the movement of sheep in chutes, as well as loading ramps and crowding pens. Sheep will balk if they see objects hung over fences, reflections, contrasts, hoses in a walkway, or see vehicles. When designing facilities, it's important to consider space or square foot to sheep ratio, or density, as well as what the various uses of the pen will be.
They need to understand behaviors like when you walk in the opposite direction of desired movement as you pass the shoulder of each sheep, they tend to go forward. The animals will tend to turn and face you when you're outside the flight zone. People need to learn to interpret and use those natural behaviors to help them to handle sheep.
Sheep have a strong flocking instinct and will commonly follow a leader. This behavior can be utilized to make handling easier. They must be able to see a pathway of escape, and they should be able to see other sheep moving down the chute in front of them. When sheep are being sorted, they should be able to see other sheep through the sorting gate. Sheep will balk if a chute appears to be a dead end. Lead sheep held in a pen or walked through a chute can be used to lure sheep through a working facility. This is especially recommended when approaching sheep are unable to see previously sorted sheep. The cutting gates at the end of the sorting alleys should allow the sheep to see through them. It is easy and practical to train sheep to lead the flock through a handling facility. Lead sheep are trained to move through the chute and then push open an escape gate to return to the crowding pen. Sheep corrals should be laid out so that the sheep go through the system along the same route for various procedures. Sheep will move more easily through a corral if they have followed the route before. Working parts of the corral, such as the sorting chute, should be oriented towards the home pasture or larger lot. Sheep will move more easily because they are headed back towards the area they came from. Do not locate the sorting chute or pen exits toward a building because if sheep can't see a place to go, they will balk. If they do, it's difficult to get them moving forward again. When sheep are calm, a small stimulus such as a rustling branch or a feed sack can be used to move them. A piece of plastic on the end of a stick works well also. If the sheep become agitated, they will not respond well to the stimulus. To prevent sheep from being distracted by movement or objects outside the handling facilities, solid fences should be used in chutes and crowd pens. Gates closed behind the flow of sheep should be solid to prevent sheep from attempting to turn back towards the holding pen they just left. Sheep respect a solid barrier. Let's review. You can make handling easier by taking advantage of the flocking instinct of sheep. These are a few examples. Using a lead sheep and providing a flap or escape gate where the lead sheep can slip out from in front of the sheep as they reach their destination. Making sure sheep can see other sheep in front of them or can see through gates to see the sheep ahead of them. Making sure to use solid-sided fences to prevent them from being distracted by anything outside the handling facility. Using gates behind the flow of sheep that are solid to prevent them from attempting to return to where they came from. Orienting the handling facilities properly with regard to what the sheep consider home, not moving the sheep towards a closed or dark area, and making sure sheep can see light where they need to go. Using a small stimulus like a feed sack to encourage balky sheep to move forward.
Animals are visual thinkers. So if they have a bad experience somewhere, they will associate that bad experience with a piece of equipment they saw, a person, maybe a particular thing, such as a cowboy hat or a certain type of pickup truck. Their thinking is very specific, or maybe a certain sound.
Yelling and excessive noise excites animals and causes stress. Excessive noise is highly stressful to sheep, since they are more sensitive to high-frequency noise than people. All handling procedures should be conducted quietly. There are differences in the way sheep breeds react to handling by people and by working dogs. You will discover that the flight zone defined earlier will differ among different breeds of sheep. Most white-faced or wool breeds are known for their gregarious flocking nature. Meat breeds, or black-faced, tend to scatter more easily. Sheep will move more readily into the wind and more readily uphill than down. A relatively flat site with a slope of 2 to 3% for drainage is ideal for corrals. This small amount of slope will not affect sheep movement. On sites with more slope, it is best to orient the sorting and working chutes uphill. Sheep will move more easily into a well-lit environment. In a covered handling facility, if light causes shadows, this will lead to balking. A curved chute works better than a straight chute for several reasons. Curved chutes prevent sheep from seeing their final destination, whether it's a truck or trailer. A curved chute enables the handler to take advantage of the natural tendency of the sheep to return to where they came from. The handler should work along the inner radius of the curve. A curved chute forces the handler to stand in the optimum position for moving the animals. However, a curve that is too sharp allows slower sheep to lose visual contact with the ones in front of them or allows the sheep to see the sorter ahead. Poor lighting conditions can affect the smooth flow of sheep in and out of facilities, whereas good lighting conditions not only help ensure the smooth flow of the sheep, but also makes the handlers work more effective as well. Harsh contrast of light and dark in handling facilities can cause sheep to balk. Illumination should be even and diffused. All livestock prefer to move from dark to light places. A single shadow that falls across an alley or loading ramp can cause balking. The lead animal will often balk and refuse to cross the shadow. If problems with balking occur in one spot, a shadow is likely the cause. Balking also can be caused by a small bright spot of sunlight coming in through a hole in the roof. Patching the roof may solve the problem. Why do livestock balk at shadows? It may be due to poor depth perception. Sheep perceive depth while they are standing still with their heads down, but they have difficulty seeing depth when they are moving with their heads up. Sheep balk at shadows because they have to stop and put their heads down to determine the difference between a shadow or a hole in the ground. Solid shades should be used over working, sorting, and shearing facilities. A single file chute for sorting sheep should be oriented so that the sun does not form a shadow down the middle of the chute. The sheep should exit from the chute so that they are heading back towards the pen they came from. The worst situation is when half of the floor of the chute is shaded and the other half is in the sunlight. Sheep also will balk if they see the sun reflecting off water or puddles in any part of the sheep handling facility. Sheep must never be picked up by grabbing the wool, and electric prods should never be used. Picking sheep up by their wool will cause extensive bruising. Bruised meat must be trimmed from the carcass and cannot be used for human food. Rough handling and grabbing sheep by the wool will increase bruises in market lambs and is ultimately costly to the producers. Herding dogs should be well trained and used in areas where sheep have room to move away. They must not be allowed to cause sheep pileups in confined areas such as crowd pens. Noisemakers and rattles are useful for moving sheep, but they should be used very cautiously. If the sheep are moving where you want them to go, it is best to remain silent. Calm handling and taking advantage of follow behavior will provide the smoothest transitions of sheep from truck to yard and from pen to pen.
It's very important that an animal's first experience with something new, like the handling race, be a good first experience. Take your lambs and just run them through the race and let them get a feed treats afterwards.
Sheep may remember bad experiences for up to 12 months. If they have had previous experiences with gentle handling, they will be quieter, easier to handle, and less stressed during future handling. When sheep are first introduced to a new handling facility or a new person, their initial experiences should be relatively pleasant. When sheep first go in a new facility, they should either be fed or allowed to quietly run through the chutes with no veterinary procedures. If the initial experience is painful or frightening, they may refuse to enter the facility in the future.
Low-stress handling of sheep is the right thing to do. It's also going to help you to have better meat quality. It's really important for handlers to understand the natural behaviors of sheep.
Reducing handling stress will improve productivity. Isolation, handling, and transportation stress can lower disease resistance, conception rates, and weight gains. Dogs should not be allowed to bite sheep because it produces a hormonal stress response, in addition to the pain and fear it causes. Handling sheep with dogs and repeated sorting and transporting 11 to 20 days after breeding can cause significant early embryonic losses. Individual animal isolation is also extremely stressful because of the natural flocking nature of sheep. Handling animals properly will reduce stress on both sheep and the handler. Good animal welfare is not only ethically appropriate, but also has distinct economic benefits. Producers who strive for good welfare are not only doing the right thing, they also will ensure safer working places and higher quality meat with fewer defects. Keep in mind, sheep will follow one another. They prefer to move uphill or up a slight incline. Slight corners and curves are better than sharp ones. If something frightens a sheep, they will move away from it. But they'll move toward another sheep or friend. They don't like to walk into the sun and never handle sheep by gripping the wool, as this can cause bruising to the carcass.